In this film, the lesson to be learned is cars can be evil too. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about John Carpenter's Christine. Yes, this was the film Carpenter did after The Thing. Unfortunately, when The Thing was released, and I know it's hard to believe today because The Thing is held in high regard as one of the best horror films of all time, and one of Carpenter's best films. And I love John Carpenter as a filmmaker, not just a horror director, filmmaker, period. He's one of my favorites. But after the release of The Thing and the bashing he took from the critics and fans alike, Carpenter he didn't receive that criticism very well. He thought he did a good job, which now people appreciate that film, but back then, not so much. And Carpenter was actually supposed to go on and do Firestarter as a film. He was supposed to direct that film. Well, they fired him off of that, and Carpenter got offered this, and he took the job doing Christine. Matter of fact, Carpenter's been quoted as saying, "This is the first time I just took a film for a job." And he didn't write the script for this film, although he didn't write the script totally for The Thing either. But he brought in Bill Phillips to write the script for this. Now, Christine was a book by Stephen King. Now, funny enough, Stephen King properties were so popular at the time that this film went into production before the novel was even released. And Richard Kobritz is the gentleman who produced this film, and he had produced the Stephen King adaptation of Salem's Lot back in the 70s with Tobe Hooper. King had a good relationship with him and offered him Cujo or this film. Kobritz picked this film and went to John Carpenter because he was available after getting fired off of Firestarter. Carpenter brought in a writer named Bill Phillips, who makes an appearance at the end of the film at the junkyard. He's the junkyard worker walking by with the boombox on his shoulder. That's the writer of this film. Brought him in to write the script. And originally the studio wanted Brooke Shields as Lee, the main girl, or main lead girl in the film, and they wanted Scott Baio as Arnie Cunningham. Well, Carpenter did not agree with that. He wanted more unknown characters or unknown actors for those roles. So he nixed that, and he brought in Keith Gordon to play Arnie Cunningham. Now, Keith Gordon, you'll remember, he was in Jaws too. He was one of the kids on the boats, and he kind of played a similar character, kind of a geeky kid in this role as well, but he gets to play duality in this film because he becomes not a geek as the film goes on and actually quite evil towards the end. And John Stockwell plays Dennis. You'll remember John Stockwell as Cougar in Top Gun, and then he went on to he acted in other things, but then he also had a directing career. I think he still directs to this day. Alexandra Paul plays Lee, this new girl to this high school, and I remember her mostly from Baywatch back in the day. She was on Baywatch for years. And then we got three great character actors that have been around, that were around for years. Unfortunately, all three men have passed away, but awesome character actors. The first one, Robert Prosky, plays Will Darnell. He was in Mrs. Doubtfire, Gremlins 2, many, many, many other things. But he's the owner of this garage. We'll talk about it when Arnie acquires Christine. He goes there to store it and fix it and restore the car. Harry Dean Stanton's in this film as a detective. Harry Dean Stanton's been an Alien. Ton of other films. He was in Escape from New York with Carpenter, so they were familiar with each other, so Carpenter brought him in here. And then Robert Blossoms is George LeBay, and he plays the creepy old guy in Home Alone who actually ends up saving Kevin McAllister. That is Robert Blossom. And then also Robert Blossoms was also in Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood, which I love that film. And he was also in a little horror film in the 70s called Deranged, which was kind of a loose adaptation of based on the story of Ed Gein. Yes, he was in that film as well, but he's been in a ton of other films over the years. His credits are massive. And also Kelly Preston makes an appearance in this film as well. She doesn't have a whole lot to do except for look cute and have a couple lines, but she's really not a factor in the overall story here. And pretty much in the beginning of the movie, we are shown Detroit in 1957, an assembly line, and we see the birth of this evil car, Christine. We see the inspector going up, popping the hood, is cherry red 58 Plymouth Fury, or 57 Plymouth Fury, sorry. And he has the hood up when he's inspecting the car, and the hood slams down in his hand, and they show him taking out, and his hand's in a bandage. And then this other guy gets in the car to take a look on the inside, and the car ends up killing him, and they find his body. And then we cut to present day, which is 1978. We're introduced to our two main leads, Arnie Cunningham and Dennis, played by John Stockwell. Arnie is the geeky friend, like he's definitely a nerd. But Dennis, I will say, in this film, I I like their friendship, and I think these two actors do a fabulous job of portraying that friendship, especially at the beginning, because Carpenter takes his time, and you get to know these characters before we see any of the evil car shit. We get to know the characters, and Arnie's definitely the geeky one, but Dennis looks out for Arnie, and he cares about Arnie. And we see a scene early on where Arnie's being bullied in the shop class, because Dennis is looking for him outside. It's lunchtime, and somebody tells him he's cornered in the shop, and these bullies in the school are harassing him. So Dennis goes to get Arnie, and he sticks up for him in a really, cool scene that this friendship they have. It's not that Dennis feels sorry for him. I think Dennis actually likes hanging out with him. That's what I get from the film. Although Arnie says that he thinks Dennis hangs out with him just because he feels sorry for him. And on their way home from school this day, Arnie sees this car, and he looks at this car like you would look at a girl that you find very attractive. And it's this old beat up '57 Plymouth Fury in this like overgrown lot, and there's a for sale sign on it. So they get out of the car and start walking over, and he's looking at it, and he's touching it like it's a woman almost. Like, and even I've seen in the interview with Keith Gordon, he said he treated the car like it was a woman, and Carpenter told him to go with that. Because that's what he wanted. Plus, he wanted to show the love that American men have for their vehicles. And this is where we see Robert Blossom comes out, and he starts saying about how it was his brother's car. His brother died, and now he's just trying to get rid of it because he's going to move. And Arnie ends up buying it for like $250, and Dennis tries to talk him out of it. Like, look, this car's a piece of shit. You can get a way nicer car. Remember, this is the '70s. This takes place in, so you can get a decent car for $250. He's like, this car is going to take a lot of money to fix up. But nothing can deter Arnie. He buys the car. And when he goes home to tell his parents are not receptive to it at all. And they're like blaming Dennis, like, why don't you stop? He goes, look at me. I try to talk him out of it. And so they tell him he can't start a car at the house. So this is where we meet Darnell, the great Robert Prosky, who's fabulous in this film. A very interesting character for sure. He runs this garage and it's junkyard. And he tells Arnie he can pick through his junk piles if he works around the thing, and don't give him shit. Like, he's a guy that doesn't take any shit from anybody. And Arnie starts refabbing this car, like restoring it. And eventually he gets it restored. But Arnie starts to change. And in the meantime, this new girl has come to school, played by Alexandra Paul, and everybody's in love with her. And Dennis goes to ask her out, but then here we find out that she has a date with Arnie. And Arnie is already starting to change, like almost into like a 50s greaser type guy. But his geekiness is gone, and he's just become like, he's starting to turn into kind of a dick. And Carpenter takes his time to show this. So that's going to be one of my even though I appreciate Carpenter's, and Carpenter shoots the high school stuff fantastic. Like, Carpenter could have did a high school teen movie back in the day if he wanted to, because he shoots it really nicely and he sets up the characters really nicely. And there's a cool football scene. This is where Dennis realizes that she was going out with Arnie. He's a football player, and he goes out for a pass. The quarterback throws it, and he sees Arnie with them, and they're making out off the end zone right by Arnie's car. And he jumps up, and he gets hurt. His knee gets busted. And so he's sidelined for a little bit, and we see Arnie's deterioration. We see this cool drive-in scene where him and Lee are making out, and we start seeing Christine's evilness, because Arnie gets out of the car to fix something, and Lee's in the car, and all these bright lights come up from the dashboard, and she starts choking. And this is where we first learn that this car is truly evil. And even though it's a ridiculous premise, if you like I feel like this is probably what Carpenter was going for, because I can go along with that, even though it's a ridiculous premise, because the characters interest me. They're interesting characters, and the actors are all doing fine work here. And it's just a really cool scene in the rain and this drive-in theater, and then she's choking, and this guy comes over and helps her because Arnie can't get in because Christine locked him out. And basically, fast forward a little bit, is this movie scary? No. There is a couple cool haunting imagery, though, especially when Christine decides to take revenge on the bullies, because they come to Darnell's garage and destroy Christine. And Arnie is heartbroken over this. And we have that cool transformation scene with the car regenerating itself. And then we get the car killing the one bully, and then the next night it goes out and kills 3 more of the bullies. And we have that haunting image of the car on fire because it blew up a gas station and killed 2 of the kids. And now it's chasing Buddy down the highway. Although it doesn't make much sense why he's running straight down the road instead of off into the, off to the side. Like, he doesn't even attempt to go off the road. But it's a haunting image of the car on fire, and it runs him over. And all you see is his body on the road on fire, and that's it. And anyway, once Dennis recovers from his knee injury, he goes to Lee and says, we got to do something about Arnie, because he's treating his parents like shit. There's a scene where he grabs his father by the neck, tells his mother to go fuck off. And like, he's definitely not the kid he was. And he's just a complete asshole. And turning evil. And at the end of the film, they set up a trap at Darnell's garage, because Darnell gets killed by the car too. And at the end, Dennis gets in his bulldozer, and Christine's there, and we have our final fight, and the bulldozer destroys Christine, but Arnie gets killed in the process because Christine crashes because they're trying to kill Lee. He flies through the window, and he has this big piece of glass shard in his side, and he dies. And they crush Christine with the bulldozer. And at the end of the film, we see Harry Dean Stanton, detective, Dennis, and Lee standing at the drunk yard, and they drop it. It's just like a block of metal. And that's the end of the film. Although we do see right at the end where a piece of the metal starts wiggling, like Christine's still trying to regenerate herself, and that's the end of Christine. Now, Carpenter did change a lot of things from the book. In the book, the dead body of the ex-owner, because we come to find out that George LeBay's brother killed himself in a car. And actually, it was George LeBay's brother that was haunting Arnie from the back seat. Carpenter got rid of all of that. So there's no possession technically, although the car definitely has influence over Arnie. And by the end of the film, he's totally evil at this point. And him and Christine are in love, and they're both jealous, or the car is jealous whenever Arnie gets attention from somebody else, especially another girl. And honestly, again, it sounds ridiculous, but they play it straight, and Carpenter keeps it grounded in as much reality as he can. I think that's why he got rid of the corpse in the back seat, talking to Arnie and influencing him, which I think was a good call, because sometimes in books, in film, things in the book, on film, the things that worked in the book don't work on film. It's just the way it is. To show it would just be completely laughable. But this film is impeccably shot by Carpenter. There's some great camera moves. The special effects with the car regenerating itself. You know, Carpenter said it was so simple. He just had the car rigged with like these things on the inside of the car to pull it in, and he just shot it in reverse, so it looks like it's regenerating when actually it wasn't on set, but it looks cool on film. And all the effects come off really well. I mean, Carpenter was always good with doing a lot with with very little. Although in this movie, he had a healthy budget of $9.7 million. And upon release, it was released December 9th of 1983. It was rated R. Obviously, it's a Carpenter film. He's only ever done, I think, one PG-13 film, and that was Starman. No, sorry, 2. He did Memoirs of a Invisible Man, which is PG-13. Hour and 50 minutes long, and then when it was released that December, it made $21 million. So it wasn't a huge hit, but it was something to rebound Carpenter from the disaster. Unfortunately, that was The Thing. It's a really well-done film. All of the cast do really well, with some great character actors here, with some newer actors that do good stuff here. And all the high school stuff comes off really, really well in this film. Carpenter does a great job. Actually, 15% of the budget of this film went to just the cars, and by the time that filming was ending, they only had 2 cars left because they had damaged the rest of them from filming all this stuff. And I think that's about it for trivia. I don't have anything else, but the movie's also set in 78 and 79. But yes, this is a really good Carpenter adaptation of a Stephen King story. I've never read the original story, but from all accounts, I have friends that love Stephen King, and they said, besides changing things, this is a really good adaptation of a Stephen King novel. I know when it was released, it did okay with critics and okay at the box office, but I know over the years it's gotten a following. I really like this movie. It's not the best Carpenter movie, but it's damn well a fun one. It's a good movie. I think some things could have been cut out. Carpenter does take his time for sure before we get to the mayhem with the car killing people. I think a couple things could have been cut out. I think it's a little long, just by a few minutes. But overall, I really like this film. I would give this film an 8.75 out of 10. Yes, an 8.75 out of 10 for Christine. Have you ever seen this film? What are your thoughts on it? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I greatly appreciate it. You all take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back next week with some more reviews going into Halloween. Thanks. Bye.